and put handcuffs on me. And they put me in jail. They put me to the jail. Let me stop by, and I remember Goyan's church. And I got some clothes on. They took me to the jailhouse, and they just put me in with a prisoner there, a big, nasty prisoner. And he took a blackjack and robbed me of my $300.
All right, guys, we got Roger Reaves here today. Come a long way from the South. Let's go.
Thank you, Sean.
Absolutely. You grew up in the South, right?
In Georgia, yeah.
How long were you there?
26 years.
Wow. I'm 27, so that's my whole life. What made you want to move out?
Well, the bloodhounds was after me. The sheriff arrested me.
You got ran out of there?
And every 3 months, the circuit judge came through, and they have the 24 men for them to decide whether they got enough to make a bill from you. I was around there in the soda fountain shaking everybody's hand. Remember me? I'm William Reeves' son,
Yeah.
And the lawyer grabbed me and said, "Get out of here, boy. You get more trouble interfering with the grand jury than you ever will with that whiskey."
So that's when your life on the run began, 26?
Well, no, I really wasn't on the run because they didn't indict me, but that's the reason I might have to back up here and just tell the whole story.
Yeah. Let's
come in there a little bit. All right, I was raised on a 3-mule farm in Georgia. We had tobacco was about the only thing made any money. The other stuff we worked hard at peanuts and cotton and some corn, and wasn't much, a 100-acre farm. And my daddy was a bad alcoholic, and so we lived poorer than we should have. And I worked in the grocery store from the time I was 14 years old until I was about 18. And my daddy was 54 years old, and I was 17. He died just one day. He had an aneurysm. And 7 little brothers and sisters. I had a baby sister, 6 weeks old, in the house with my mother. She was beautiful, 41 years old, and he owed more money on the farm than it was worth.
Wow.
So we went to work. I mean, my mother, I went to work. And we grew tobacco mainly. We paid it out in watermelons. But when I got 18, I went up to Canada. I hitchhiked up there to crop tobacco, picking tobacco, transit farm worker. It was 1,100 miles, and they paid $20 a day in room and board up there. And in Georgia, you only made $3 or $4 a day, whatever you could get. And I went up there, and big tobacco farm, beautiful big Belgian draft horses, and I'd pick my foot up and one put his down behind me, and their nostrils was on me all day long. And I was tough from working on the farm in Georgia, and the heat didn't bother me. So after we was into the crop a couple of weeks, boys came over from another farm and said, "You want to go to the carnival tonight?" Sure, I want to go to a carnival. So we got in a 1949 Ford, and away we went to Tillsonburg, Ontario, Canada. I don't know how far it was, 50 miles. And we got there, and it was a huge fair, carnival. Big tents. It was the first thing was the Hoochie Coochie show. I'd never seen anything like that, and went in for our 50 cents and going down the road a little bit. And there was a huge man on the platform, and he's got a little bear in a cage over there in a circus wagon. And he's saying, "Brand new $100 bill that anybody got guts enough to wrestle my bear and get in that cage and get all 4 feet off the ground. What's your name, young man?" And then, I named Roger Reaves. "How much you weigh, Roger?" "I weigh 145 pounds. 145-pound man against 600-pound beast. And he threw me in that cage with that little bear. That little bear wasn't little at all. When he started getting up, he got up all over that circus wagon. And he had big pads on his feet, on his hands and legs, and he had a muzzle on. So I wasn't too much worried about it. So I ran into that bear, swam on, and all the things was loose, so it made a lot of noise for the crowd. That bear took one swipe at me and laid me out about 6 feet tall level, and I hit the ground, wham! And the crowd here, "Whoo, sick him, Roger." I'm not on my feet again before I'm laid out the other way.
Jeez.
So I thought, something's got to change. So I grabbed the top of that cage, and I kicked that bear with all my might with my shoes on, right in the head. He went back up there, and I run into him as hard as I could. And I mean, I knocked him off his feet for sure.
Wow.
That bear went insane.
You pissed him off.
He threw me 20 feet into the other corner of that hard. I never had the breath knocked out of me so hard. He dove on me. I think he weighed 600 pounds.
Holy crap.
And he just tore my clothes off with them like paws. And the owner of the place came in, put a chain on him, snapped him on, and ran it back, and the bear run over him. The chain got caught, and part of the tent came down. Stick him. Anyway, I couldn't work for a couple of days. So I went down to the lake there in Canada, Lake Erie, Turkey Point. And I walked down on a long wooden pier, and some guys tried to throw me in, and I kind of threw them in a little bit. And on out there was 3 pretty girls sitting on towels. And as I walked by, I just kind of tipped my hat. Wow, she's a heart stopper. Mm. And when I came back, she said, "Is that a university ring?" I said, "No, this is a high school ring." She said, "We don't get high school rings in Canada. May I see it?" And I said, "You're from the Netherlands, aren't you?" She said, "Sit down here and tell me how you know about Dutch accents." Mm-hmm. I knew one person in the world that had that accent. And anyhow, that's my wife now. That was 64 years ago.
Wow.
So I threw that in. So a couple of years later, we got married, and I got a job on the railroad, driving trains, fireman on the diesel electric on the Atlantic Coast Line Railroad. And I better back up a little bit. Yes. I want to tell, I forgot about when we went to my daddy's funeral. And when we came out of the church was packed with white people. And out under all the trees, they were just a multitude of black people. The men with the hat over, they were saying goodbye to Mr. William. He was loved. Really, really, my daddy was a nice man. Anyway, when we were going home down the sandy road from the highway, there were 2 wreckers. One had our pickup truck, and the other one had our tractor behind it. And they was towing it away. Foskey Auto Parts, Douglas, Georgia. What? That guy was 3 times big as I am in his overalls. Like, Mr. Reaves owed us some money on this, so we got it.
Yeah.
So that's how bad it was. Anyhow, I wanted to put that out. So we were just devastated. No tractor, no way to go, no money. So now is when I went up to Canada and worked and come back. And a couple of years later, I went up there and got Mari, and we got married and came on back to the farm. And I borrowed money against the farm. My mother signed for me, and we put in 36,000 laying chickens. And the price of feed kept going up, and the price of eggs kept going down until every time we'd pick up a dozen eggs, we lost a nickel. So I was $78,000 in debt.
Wow.
And I thought, we're going to lose the farm for sure. So I started making moonshine whiskey. And I got bigger and bigger until I was making 1,000 gallons a week.
Wow.
And so I was selling it $3 a gallon. It took $1 to make it, so I was making $2,000 a week. I was paying things off. And then somebody turned me in, and I went by and going to the still, I had the truck loaded with sugar and condensers and barrels, and I saw a car in a place it wasn't supposed to be, and I went down that little side road, and 2 of them got after me, and I went over logs and through the swamp and through the woods. Finally, I jumped out and ran, and 8 doors opened, and those men they emptied their pistols at me. I got nicked across the neck right there. Wasn't bad, and then I went into Horse Creek, the big Horse Creek, and it was so cold till I broke ice getting in it.
Damn.
And I must have swam down that creek 2 miles getting away from them. And I go away from the bulldogs, and I knew they was going to be there soon. And I walked to my mother's house, and then I went to see a lawyer, and he said, if they didn't catch you, you all right. So, but they didn't indict me. And so I was arrested for it. That was the first thing. And I think with that I saw how easy it was to break the law. And if nobody knows, you're in pretty good shape. So I think that was the beginning of my criminal career right there. If I hadn't done that, I would have never got into the drug business.
Wow. So that didn't stop you from making moonshine?
I quit making moonshine. So I went on that. There was nothing for me in Georgia. I lost my job with the railroad. They fired me because I had made moonshine. And so I went out to California, and I worked for a couple of years in construction. And then I got a job on the Redondo Beach Fire Department. And I thought I had won the lottery. I really did. And so I spent most of the 4 years that I was on the fire department driving the back of a hook and ladder truck. And on my days off, we only worked 10 days a month, and we worked 24 hours a day, so we got 20 days off. I would go back to Missouri and buy antiques. There was a lot of them there on the west side of the Mississippi River. As the settlers would come, the people going to California and Oregon, they would come with their furniture and their dishes and stoves. But when they crossed the river, from getting off the train, they got across the river, they couldn't get it in those wagons. Those wagons were Studebakers. Nobody much knows that. And there's later Prairie schooners, but that's what came across, and they couldn't get half their furniture in it. So millions of large pieces was left along the river there. And I'd get semi-trucks and bring it back every month and have an auction. I was making pretty good money and owned the fire department. And so I bought an airplane. Then I bought a better one, then another one. And I just was, my hobby was to fly. So I'd fly down to Mexico, and Muley particularly, and Mari would come with me and the babies with us, and she would lay in a hammock and read a book, and I'd go fishing, and she potty trained the babies there. And so the guy said, why don't you bring some marijuana back with you? I said, I don't know anything about that, mister. What's the deal? He said, it's the hottest thing since pancakes, man. There is nothing better than that. I said, what did it pay? He said, I'll introduce you to someone. So he introduced me to a really nice guy. Really, he was paralyzed. I didn't realize he couldn't walk. Beautiful voice. And he said, you got an airplane? You bring some pot back? I said, I don't know. What would you pay? And he said, let me bring somebody. So he called somebody, came over. I'll give you $10,000.
Wow, for one trip?
Yeah, I said, throw some of that shit in there. That was about 2 years' pay take home from the fire department at the time. So I went down there, and there was nothing to it. They put some bales of marijuana in there, and I flew it up and unloaded it and give it to them. They gave me a shopping bag full of money. Wow. I took it home and dumped it on the bed. Mari put her hand over her mouth like, what? And the babies grabbing $100 bills and crawling around, and we just laughed and went out to dinner. And I thought, this can't be real. That's 2 years' pay. You could buy any house there in Torrance or Redondo Beach for $30,000 at that time.
Wow.
So I went to see a criminal defense attorney. I questioned, and I put a $100 bill on his desk, and I said, Mr. Lawyer, one question, what would happen if I got caught bringing pot from Mexico in my airplane? He said, what's your criminal history? I said, I don't have one. He said, oh, tickets, speeding tickets, what? I said, mister, I've never had a parking ticket in my life. He said, what? He said, you'll get probation. And you work on the fire department? I said, yes, sir. He says, you'll get probation at the very, very worst. If you got the worst judge in town, you get 1 year and you spend 4 months raking leaves at some base, some camp. So I went and asked somebody else, and it's about the same thing. There was nothing to it. So I went and bought me a bigger airplane. I took that money and bought me a Cessna 207. That thing was big to me. And now I can bring 1,100 pounds, and I'm making $40,000. And so I was going to make $300,000 to go to the farm. Well, I made $300,000 so quick that it wasn't even funny. And Mari says, Roger, you don't remember the mosquitoes and the ticks and the rattlesnakes and the cottonmouth moccasins and the hard work. I'm not going back. So she put her heels in the ground, and we didn't go back. So I just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Wow. And that's how it started.
That was how it started.
That's crazy.
Marijuana business.
And you ended up becoming the biggest drug smuggler of all time, right? International.
That's what they claimed.
That's what they say online, right?
That's what the DEA said.
Yeah. When did it start getting serious, you'd say? Like it started getting kind of risky and your life was on the line?
Well, it came all of a sudden. I was with that 207, I would do a load every day. And Mari would go to the store and buy Toys R Us. She'd buy little toys and put boxes of apples and candies and everything she could think of for the children of that poor village called Pichilingi. And every day I'd land more and more children were showing up. So I was Mr. Santa Claus coming. And I didn't. So on number 13, I thought, I had a little thing going off inside, like, don't do it.
gut feeling.
Now I listen to it. At that time, I knew, but I didn't listen. Now I will run. So I landed and stopped about halfway down the runway. I think the runway was 800 or 900 feet long. It was just enough to take off empty with fuel. And I must have stopped about halfway down, and the men came out, and we fueled the airplane up, and then I walked to the village through the starving donkeys and the washed-out roads, and spent the night there. And the next morning before daylight, I walked down to the river and brushed my teeth. The river's about knee-deep. And I got in the airplane, and a young man named Pedro get in with me, and he was maybe 100 pounds. And he would fly with me, and we'd go maybe 30 or 40 miles away to some highway. And when I come, a truck would come out and block the traffic. Had the guys with their guns on it. And then way down there, a mile or two down, another truck would come across and block the highway, freeway, big road. And I'd land between them, and the truck would come up with the marijuana, and they put 1,100 pounds in there. And I had plenty of time. I'd shake hands with everybody in their big sombreros, and I'd get in the plane, take off over it. And I remember sometime they were just a row of traffic on the other side, and there was a highway patrolman sitting there with his blue dome, but it wasn't turning.
Wow. So that they were in on it.
No.
Highway patrol.
They were scared. You get that many men with guns, they ain't going to bother you with their little pistol.
Yeah.
So on number 13, I got in and I fired the engine up. I heard, pow. I thought a tire blew out. And I'm looking at the tires hanging out, and Pedro's punching me. Policia, policia, policia. Well, it dawned on me. So I just shoved the throttle to the firewall. I didn't have a chance to go to the other end and turn around. I might have had 500 feet in front of me. And when I got right to the end of it, I was about 40 knots, I reckon. And it would probably somewhat fly with full flap. So I stood it up. And when I did, I was looking at the airspeed indicator, and it just disappeared. A bullet hit it and just knocked it back into the dash.
Wow.
And all the windows was mowed out, and a bullet went up by my head and went into the gas tank and just ruptured it left of me. And the fuel was just pouring over on me. I had to lean way over to get out of it.
Jeez.
And I was hit several times. And I found out now that I thought that they had shot the elevator cables in two, but I found out now I was just hanging on a stall, and it feels that way. So I don't know if I did the right thing, and I just thought that thing was going to burst into flames any second. That a spark flew in there, and all that gasoline was all over me. So I pulled the power, and I crashed into the river, and the first hit, the wings came off. And the second hit, the nose came underneath and just left me sitting up on top of that thing. And I must have been knocked out. Because Pedro was saying, come on, Roger, come on, Roger. And I jumped out, and coming down the runway, can't call it a runway, but the airstrip was two of those Federales, and they were coming, they were still shooting.
Wow.
And two of the bullets hit the plane right by us. Pow, pow. Well, I carried a 9mm high-powered Browning, and I have my finger's a little short, the trigger finger. So I have to use that pistol. Some of them big pistols I have to shoot with the other finger. But I can shoot that Browning. So I had it in a holster on top of a radio taped up there. Now that with the thing turned upside down, that thing is laying right there. So I pull it out and I fire a few pow, 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 down. I'm not trying to kill anybody. I certainly don't want to kill a policeman.
Yeah.
So they run into rocks. And I say, reminds me of when the rabbit get the gun, the farmer, he run. They ran into rocks. And Pedro and I took off and up the mountain. And I wanted to go down through the river. Oh, no, they'll come that way. So we went on up through the cactus. And I looked, and Pedro's foot was almost shot off.
Jeez.
The bullet had hit him in the right-hand side of the ankle and just tore it out. It wasn't even bleeding. It was in shock. And so we came to an old donkey, a long-haired, big donkey. And she must have been 30 years old. She was from the village and named Charlotte. And Pedro, Charlotte. And we jumped on that donkey and got away.
No way.
Yeah, so that's a whole
God.
chapter in my book about how we got away and getting out of that place and being shot up like that.
That's insane. And that wasn't enough to stop you, huh?
No, I went bigger airplane now.
Wow. Because I feel like that incident would scare a lot of people, and they would stop.
It scared me because I didn't realize it. But I'd run over a rock in the road with my pickup, and it would hit underneath the pickup, and the hair would just stand up on the back of my head. From memory of those bullets hitting that airplane, I reckon.
Damn. That is crazy. So how did they get close to you guys? I thought they were being blocked off.
Nah, the guy just lying.
Oh, really?
He's a hair-lip piece of shit. You know, that's what he was.
Wow.
A little starving donkeys, and he's kind of head man there. He ain't paying anybody off.
Damn, so he just kept the money.
Exactly.
Wow, that's crazy. So what happened from there?
Let me see. I got a bigger airplane. I bought a plane from the Beach Boys, a twin beach. That thing was so nice. It was criminal to take the inside of it out. Pigskin, all the seats with maps on it from different woods, of like a jigsaw puzzle. Oh, that thing was pretty. And I bought that, and boy, that was big. Going up from a Cessna to a Beech 18 was something big for me. I flew to Atlanta and picked my wife up, Mari, and they rolled out the carpet there on the international runway. So it was. So I flew with that plane there. I flew so many loads until I brought the price down from $100 to $60 a pound in California.
Damn.
That year. And they was catching a lot of pilots. They was catching almost everything coming across the border called Operation Star Trek. And so I figured out a way to beat it. I'd come out of southern Mexico or wherever I was coming and go to the middle of Baja, California. And there was a ranch there, a goat ranch, where they made cheese. And it was 20 miles to the nearest road. And there was a strip there. And I landed there and asked a guy named Juan if I could unload my marijuana there while I went to town for fuel. And sure. So I gave him $500 and I'd go to town. We put it under the mesquite trees. The doves, it was such a beautiful place, unbelievably beautiful. And I'd go to Mulahey and they'd wash my plane, fill it up with fuel. I'd have lunch, maybe rent a room and have a nap. I'd fly back out there in the afternoon and load back up. And I would take off and go west, and there was the island of Guadalupe, 200 miles off the coast of Baja, and I would go there, and then I would head northwest until I was 300 miles off the coast of San Diego, and I put it down pretty low. And then I went north until I got behind the Santa Barbara Islands, and they're 4,000 feet tall. And then I'd come in low behind them, and there was an airstrip there, and I'd pull up and go on out into the desert and unload.
Wow.
I did that over 100 times.
Holy crap. And they never caught on?
Never caught on to what I was coming in.
Dang.
I didn't tell that until a few just recently. So that was my marijuana. I'd like to tell one about on the way down, I said, I better stop. I was going south and said, I better stop at the goat ranch and see if everything's okay before I go get a load. I'd usually go down to Cabo San Lucas, and that was before the road was even made, and it was dirt streets.
Yeah.
And so I stopped, and Juan came up on his fast-walking mule. Hey, little Juan, ¿cómo está? How is everything? Not so good, senor. I said, what's the matter? He said, when you left last time, the soldiers came. 50 of them. And they camped under all these trees here waiting on you to come back. And they ate my goats.
What?
He said, look, and he took me out of the plot. And there's a pile of bones that big. I saved the bones to show you.
Damn.
I said, how many? He said, they just shot the nannies, the one closest to the pot. They ate my goats. And so I said, how many did they? And he said, I believe he said 50 that they ate. And there was a pile. I said, how much for each one of them? And I forget what it was, $30 or $50 a piece. And I had money in my pocket. I gave it to him, and he was happy again.
Holy crap. That's ruthless. So they did catch on a little bit then.
Well, then I couldn't use that place anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I did. I put a piece of tin on top of the goat house, and if it was up, I was all right. If it was down, I knew not to land. But I said, is there any place here to grow marijuana? He said, he had 25,000 hectares, that's 60, 70,000 acres. He said, not here, senor, too many people, but I know a place. So I spent the night there in the airplane, and the next morning we got on 2 fast-walking mules. And we went, and it had rained in the country, and the whole place was covered in flowers. It was just heavenly. And we came by a mesa. He said, I killed 2 big mountain lions there last week. What? Yes. I said, how'd you do it? He said, well, I roll rocks off of that mesa, and when they go down through the bush, the deer run out. So that's how I kill deer. But this time, 2 mountain lions ran out. And I killed them. And I said, what do you do with them? He said, we ate them. I said, you ate the lions? He said, hey, senor, we very good. So we stopped for lunch, and he had a stack of tortillas. One of them had a big fly in it. He just pinched the fly out. And he had this dried meat in very nice, and he took some dry cactus and made a little invisible fire, but it was a fire. And he heated those tortillas up and put that little sauce in there and put that meat in there, ground up like sausage. After about 10 of those, I said, that's mighty good. What kind of meat is that? He said, Leon.
Leon.
So I had line for lunch there.
Wow. That's cool. I wonder how that tasted. I've never had it.
It just tastes like sausage. They put the hot spices in it and things.
Damn, some mountain lion. Those things are big, right?
Yeah. So that was what I did with those people. Yes.
And when was the first time you got arrested? Was it shortly after that?
I'm trying to think just exactly how that happened. Oh yes, on the some back before that. After I got, it took me about 3 months to get over the gunshots I had to keep my foot above my head. That thing thumped
Right.
every heart.
Your toe got shot off, right?
Yeah. So it when I went to Hawaii, we had a lovely time with children pouring pina coladas on me and Mari there. So I went back to Mexico, and I had another fellow from out there, and he was going to come down and pick up the load that I had paid for. So he got arrested in Hermosillo. Somehow he messed up. And in his pocket was my phony name in the hotel I was staying.
Ooh.
So a nice gentleman coming, I was in the pool. He said, are you Roger Reaves? I said, yes. And he just shook my hand and put handcuffs on me.
Damn.
And they put me in jail. They put me to the jail. Let me stop by, and I remember Goyan shirts was popular. And I got some clothes on, and it took me to the jailhouse, and they just put me in with a prisoner there, a big, nasty prisoner, and he took a blackjack and robbed me of, I had $300 in my wallet. He took my wallet and everything I had. They put me in a little cell, and I guess it was 20 feet long by 12 feet wide, and sometime there must have been 20 prisoners coming there.
Jeez.
And I stayed there 3 days, and I remember I didn't have anything to eat, and I had a Pepsi bottle, and I'd get the boy to go and get a spigot, and he'd get some warm water and bring it to me. There's some rough-looking fellows came through, and a handsome man, and they was being transferred from one prison to the other, going to Tres Marias out there in the ocean. And he sat down, and a little woman came, very nice, beautiful. It was his mother, and she brought a basket of food and brought it in and give it to him. And I was sitting beside him on that concrete floor, and that stuff smelled so good. It was little chickens wrapped in tortillas, and he offered me some, and I said, please. And so I ate 2 or 3 of them, and it was just delicious. And I said, thank you, senor, thank you. So it might have been the best sermon I ever had. Don't thank me, thank God. Mm-hmm. That was nice. And so they put me back after that, they put me in the torture chamber.
Jeez.
And they really did a number on me. They beat me until there wasn't anything on me that wasn't red, black, or blue.
Oh, my gosh.
And then they put my head under like a seltzer water, and 3 of them would hold you down. If you took a swiff of that carbonated water or whatever it was, I guarantee you 6 of them couldn't hold you down. It would just make your head explode.
Wow.
So I learned after the first time, right before you have to breathe, act like that, go into a frenzy. So they electrocuted me with cattle prods, and they had a paper. If you signed the paper, it's all over. Well, I knew if I signed the paper, I was in prison for at least 6 years. If you don't sign it, somebody can get to somebody and pay out. So I'd already learned that. I knew that. So they after I don't know how long I was back there for a month, I guess, and they took me out and stripped me naked and strapped me over a barrel or something, and they had these winches and put my arms far apart like this, and they come in and they buttered up my bum. Uh-oh, what they fixing to do now? And so anyway, it was a terrible fellow. He come there and he just crammed me full, big thumb, crammed me full of hot chili pepper.
Jeez. Right
up my rectum till it's full up. I mean, it was excruciating painful. That's probably the nastiest pain I've ever had. And after that, I laying on the floor recovering, and they brought a dead man in, a slim black man. And he was dead, and he was wrapped in newspaper, just like a mummy, from the top of his head all the way down, all of them, you couldn't see anything. And they had a meat hook in him, and they hung it on a bolt on the side. Of course, they'd had that bolt there for ages. And you next, son of a bitch, you next. Well, that didn't bother me too bad. A dead man is awful, but And then he started thawing out, and it looked like he was crying. He had his head was like this, and the tears running down his face. It was the formaldehyde running out of him. And then his orifices opened up, and it's puddling down on the floor. What an awful smell.
Jeez.
And I went smelling that formaldehyde. I had hallucinations. I saw pink flying pigs with wings on them, all in that cell. And I put my face under the door. There's about a half inch, and I put it under that filthy, blood-stained door, sucking air. And, of course, I went unconscious. And I woke up in the hospital with a doctor with a respirator on me saying, breathe, man. Breathe, man. I almost died from that.
Wow.
So I was sick, and I had a terrible headache for like 2 weeks. Anyhow, my wife came down and paid the bribe. And one morning at 4 o'clock, they threw something on me and come quick. And we went out the back door of the prison like I'd escaped, but it was a payoff.
Holy crap. And that was the first of 5 prisons.
That's the first of 5 prisons.
4 more after that one. That one sounds like it might be the worst though, right? That sounds intense. Or was Germany worse?
That was the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life.
Yeah.
By far. Ain't nothing else even. Laugh at the rest of it.
Damn. Yeah, that sounds insane.
They were nasty. And I found out that there was 7 DEA agents there.
Really?
To tell them to stop Roger Reaves. Whatever you do, stop him. So he's got an
wow. So the DEA has pull in other countries.
Well, they were there. They was joint with them, and they came. And these federales were not local. They were from Mexico City. They come to arrest me.
Wow.
So it was a put up job by the Americans.
But they couldn't find any evidence on you.
They had none, so they were going to get me stopped in Mexico.
They were trying to get you to rat out people, maybe?
They just want to put me in prison and stop me.
Yeah.
I was bringing a load every week. And they knew it, but they didn't know I was getting it in.
Yeah. Wow, that's insane. So where'd you go after that? Did that scare you from Mexico?
I know I had one more encounter. I was in the hotel room and they arrested me. And they took me out to with the same DEA agent. They took me out to past the prison where I'd been, went on and passed a railroad track, and they turned down the railroad track, bumpy road, and they stopped right in about an acre where they dumped the cairn from the highway. They pick up the dead cows and burros with a winch, and they bring them to this place to rot. And I guess every year they take a bulldozer and they push up the bones and the cow hides, and there's the jungle right behind that. So they stopped right in the middle of that, 3 carloads. I was in the middle of the LTD Fords new. And I stepped out of the Ford and they said, "Donde su avions? Where are your airplanes?" I said, "I don't speak Spanish, sir." He slapped me upside the head with a big, knocked me plumb off my feet. I said, "My Spanish improved a little bit." So they tied my hand behind me with a belt, my own belt, and pulled a shirt over me, and did they work me over. And they had a cattle prod. And they burnt me with that thing. And that guy was big, and he was red-faced, and that went on for about 3 hours.
Jeez.
And he looked like he was tired of it as I was. My nose was bloody, and the shirt was bloody, and my knees was all, the meat was going off the inside of them where they had me squatted down like that. And so the batteries got bad on the cattle prod, so they called the boss. And when there was 5 of them around me, and when 4 of them went up there where the car was to talk with that boss, I had got my hand loose, and I got a rock, good size, about like a baseball, and I had it in my hand, and he'd been having that thing under my face and telling me to sign, and I went, "Senor, I signed." And he came over like, "What?" And when he did, I came over with that rock, and I hit him in the head, and I took off. I mean,
sounds like a movie scene.
It was at the time. And I guess 50 feet away or 100 feet away was that pile of dirt and the cow hides and the bones. And I ran over that, and the bullets started flying at me. It was all dry and red, and the bullets were flying. And right when I jumped over it, a machine gun, a little pistol, like probably a MAC-10, opened up. And it just sledded the foliage above me, and my nose caught right on a vine. And it throwed me backwards, wham. And I'm behind 3 or 4 feet of dirt. And I went hauling, like I'd been shot. Anyhow, I scrambled through the forest and got away.
Wow.
So I got to,
That is insane.
There's quite a bit to that story. I wrote a whole paragraph, a chapter about that. I got I mean, I was just right next to one. I heard his radio crack, and then I had to crawl across a little pasture with a horse playing with me. And I get across, and there's like 1,000 acres of mango trees. And I get up in the second row because I figured that there's a helicopter coming. And I watched 17 soldiers get out of a big soldier and go into those woods where I was.
What?
And I sat up there all day long on that little, and if I move, the tree shakes.
Oh my God.
So I could hardly, when the helicopter flew away, I got down out of that tree after a while. And I had to walk a mile or two across. And it was just, you could see forever under there. And I come to an old chicken house, and there was some, I guess the water hadn't run. They telling, I washed the blood off of me and caught the back of a school bus. There was a lot of dirt on the back of it, and I grabbed it, and then how I got away on the back of that school bus.
That's insane. You've escaped death
So then
that's
when I found out that the Americans were there to stop me. So I quit Mexico. I said it was too dangerous now. And I didn't know how bad I'd hurt that federale. And I knew if I ever got caught again, they pay me back with spades.
Yeah.
They had to kill me.
Yeah. You think he survived that federale?
Oh, yeah. And
Okay.
did not have been extradited back to Mexico for sure.
You ever find out who it was?
No.
Really?
I never even tried to.
Yeah. It's funny seeing the mob guys like talk to FBI agents now on podcasts.
Yeah,
you know, the guys that hunted them down.
Yeah.
So
They
I wonder.
all same thing, just different side.
Yeah. So which agency was after you? Was it the
DEA.
DEA? Wow. That's crazy. So you went to a different country after that?
I started in Colombia.
You flew there, or you took a ship?
No, I flying out of there, flying a DC-3, hauling pot out of there. And it was during the World Series baseball game in 1981 that I was down there, and I was had to go too far in. The guy lied to me about how far it was, and I had to put it down on a strip. And I'm having lunch at the place till I'm waiting for the right time. It was in the guerrilla territory, close to Brazil. And I was having some lunch there, and laying in a hammock, and wham! I mean, and I looked up in the air, seeing two military jets going straight up, just turned. They came back down that runway and just tore it up with machine guns.
Damn.
And I got in my airplane, and a couple other guys got in there with me. And the guy took off with my $80,000 in the truck, and I should have got on that truck with my money. But I got in the airplane. I didn't think they'd shoot me. So I took off, and the two planes was right beside me. And they was trying to get me to go to Villavicencio. There's a military base not too far away. And I said, They were just right there, like you and I looking at nice-looking young men. And I just hold up the old peace sign. I go, oh, no. So one of them had to leave, and the other one got underneath me, and the 20-millimeter cannon was just shooting up. It looked like, and the tracers looked like they were curving up they were close. So I pushed it over so that he couldn't get under me anymore. And he thought I was trying to run into him. And then he come in, he tore the wing up and put bullets in the tail. And I had a lot of barrels of fuel in aviation. I said, if one of those tracers goes in that, I'm a fireball.
Wow.
So anyway, I went into a thunderstorm, tried to get away, and I went up like 20,000 feet, and I come out there, he was right there.
Jeez.
He had me on his radar.
This guy was persistent.
So I went back in, and I pulled it up into a spiral stall, and I went down, and I got away from him, and I got under the clouds, and I thought, I've done so far down here, I'll go get the marijuana now. I was bulletproof, and the other two guys begging me to go out, let's go back to San Jose, Costa Rica. But I went and I saw a long, long stretch by the River Guaviare, and it looked like it was 10 miles long with just grass on it. And I said, that looked like a spot to stop and rest until I can go back to see the guerrillas. And I've kept with that big airplane. That thing weighs 30 tons. And one strip after the other. I just put those big tires, it's a big semi-tires. And it looked like a really good runway. And I had a guy, Al, he was the co-pilot.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to stop this time, Al. So when I stopped, I almost come to a stop, and I said, take your feet off the brakes. He said, not on the brakes. And I knew what had happened. That thing had fallen through. It's a hard crust, and underneath it was mud. And the plane started, and I just gave it full power, but it was too late. And it stood up. It just stood up on its head, stood up. It's 100 feet long, 100 feet wingspan. That plane stood right up on its head, and the two big engines kept it from caving in on me.
Wow.
The whole front caved in right to us, all the instrument panel and everything, just that close to getting killed. And when it stopped, the escape hatch is in the top. It's just the bolt you undoing. I stepped out on the grass and got my satchel. And Al got out with me, and the other guys had to get out they had to skim me down hoses to get out. Anyway, we had quite a time with our suitcases, and I tell the story in full in the book. But anyway, I went on down the road. They went on down the road, and I went down the trail. I said, I'm not going down the road after all this. And they went straight to prison. They spent a long time in Bogota. And I went on down, I was 11 days in the jungle.
Wow.
And I got rides and dug out canoes with the indigenous people, and I bought a block of brown sugar. I think the caramel type stuff. And I'd put that in a bag from a cleaner bag, shake it, and that's what I lived off of. And so the indigenous people there would give me some food too.
And this is in Colombia?
Yeah, down there close to, Venezuela, Brazil, that area right in that corner. And so after 11 days, and here's this little spiritual, I was in a dugout canoe, and I was trying to communicate with Mari. And I said, I'm all right, Mari. I'm all right. Because they thought maybe I was dead. I knew they would think that I was crashing an airplane like that. And she said she was taking a shower, and she heard me say it clearly.
Wow.
So I don't know, but she said she wasn't worried anymore. So after 11 days, came to a place, I kept asking the Indians, ¿Dónde está aviones? And where's airplanes? And Loma Linda, where is it? Lejos, long way. So I went several hundred miles, and I came to Loma Linda, and it was like Hawaii, World War II. Shiplap boards, beautiful, just like, what in the world? Big airstrip there and several airplanes. And a nice lady there said, how did you get here? So, well, I'm just touring the Amazon. We don't have tour ships. And I said, what is this place? And she said, you don't know. This is Loma Linda, headquarters for Missionary Aviation Fellowship for the Amazon. And I had originally learned to fly, to be a Missionary Aviation Fellowship pilot, to fly the missionaries in and out and to sick people. That was my idea when I was younger. And so they flew me out. They flew me right to that military base, and a military policeman took my satchel out of the plane, and the same military base of jets had tried to get me to go to.
Wow.
So I said, all right. So they interrupted the World Series baseball game. Said, American DC-3 has just been shot down by the Colombian Air Force, but he's up and away, ladies and gentlemen. I took off again the first time. And then they said, but anyway, they said, this is the first plane shot down on Reagan new war on drugs. So it did interrupt the World Series baseball game in 1981.
Wow. So they had to delay the game?
Pardon?
They had to delay the game, or what happened?
No, they just, when they speak at halftime or something, they tell what's going on in the world.
Okay.
So
that's crazy.
I didn't hear it. Several people heard it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was your plane they were talking about?
That was me.
Holy crap.
It wasn't nobody else.
Dang.
Yeah.
What a story.
The first plane shot down on the war on drugs.
Yeah. So those two guys went to prison. Did you talk to them after?
No, I never did talk to him. I sent one of them. The one guy was all right, but I begged him to come with me. I said, you work for me.
Yeah.
Come on, man. This is because that guy's 7 feet tall and got big muscles don't mean he knows what he's talking about. He already got us in this trouble himself.
Right.
I'm tired. I'm going with Dan. Seemed like people with big muscles seem to talk, get. So I said, you go with him, but you on your own.
Were you worried about them snitching on you, ratting on you?
Nothing about that, because in Mexico, in Colombia, in those places, if they don't catch you, you're in pretty good shape.
Oh, really?
Yeah. United States is one of the few places that just dog it after you from here to Vietnam to Russia. They go after you
everywhere.
Like it's a game with them. They want to put people in prison. That's I put the cuffs on him.
Right.
I'm so proud of myself. I shot him and I killed him. And even in prison, they put the high five slap on him. Get out of here. There's 50 of you and those two little guys.
Yeah.
Cowardly.
Yeah, they take a lot of pride in arresting people in the U.S., right?
Oh, yeah. And then how many years you can get? Like, they asked for life sentence for me. You're insane.
They wanted life for you?
Yeah, I asked you a life.
Wow.
A guy got 35 years for possession of marijuana.
What? Now it's legal.
Exactly. And so
I think all those guys
jumping ahead of it a little bit, way ahead of it. But I thought, all right, I need a landing strip halfway between Colombia or wherever I was hauling out of and Louisiana. So I went with my family to Honduras, San Pedro Sula. It's about halfway. And we went into Lake Azul. Oh, how beautiful. And we was looking at farms and ranches. And we got muddy and we got in the river and had 2 little girls. And we came back to the hotel and we put our clothes in the laundry. Mm-hmm. And so when went for me, wasn't ready, he said, come back in the morning. I said, well, our tickets to New Orleans is ready. We got to go in the morning. So I told Mari, I said, I'll go to the laundry and you go take the children and get on that plane. It's easier for one to stand by and then 2. So I went to the laundry and got our clothes. There's a big bag of them. And got the taxi and the old man. I was trying to get him to go faster, and I gave him a $100 bill. Go faster. He just blew the horn faster than that old car. He didn't go any faster at all. So I got there, and the plane was brand new 727, taxiing out. And I ran out around the building, and I waved to him, and the young pilot waved back at me. And then I saw Mari's face in the cockpit. At that time, you could go up, and she's telling him and so he stopped. I saw the nose wheel go down, and he extended the ladder, and I'm running for the ladder. Then he takes off again, just like a hitchhiker was. And he's playing with me. Then he stops and puts it out. And I get on the airplane, and the whole crowd cheers. And I go back about halfway, and my little girl, Miriam's about 9 years old. And she's sitting there, and she moves over to the middle seat, and there's a gentleman there. Right here he is, Mr. Barry Seal. And I sit on the outside, and the plane takes off, and the wheels come up with a thud. And then in a few minutes, it's another little click, click. And Miriam said, what was that, Dad? And I said, he just turned on his autopilot. The guy leans across. You fly these things? I said, I got a few hours, mister. He said, I do too. My name Barry Seal. And he talked, and he said he just got out of prison that morning. He had blue eyes. He looked like a CIA agent or something. He didn't look like a fellow who just got out of prison. And I thought he was just trying to get me to talk.
Yeah.
So he chatted away all the way to New Orleans, and I didn't believe a word he said. So when we got off, though, there was a bunch of people. There was his mother and his wife and little children crying and egging on him, kissing him. He'd been in prison for a year down in Honduras.
Wow. And
I said, he's sucker telling the truth. I tell Mari, I said, give him his phone number and address. So I went over, I said, Barry, come out and see me. I might have some work for you. So that's how I met Barry Seal. So after some kind of bad experiences down in Colombia, I'd get a load of pot, and I'd come up, and it wouldn't be anything like what I bought. But so I quit. Yeah. And so I had the fellow, he says, I know the money's in cocaine. Let me introduce you to someone. So we flew to Medellin and went to the top of one of those high rises, and there was a lavish apartment, a condominium there with glass all around. And the guy was drunk. He could speak several languages, brilliant, but he was drunk. And he stayed drunk for months when he did. And while we were talking, in come a woman, high cheekbones, rabbit furs all over, rabbit fur boots, and she's sashaying around, and she kisses everybody 3 or 4 times on the cheek. That's Sonia de Atala from Santa Cruz, Bolivia, and she was his Bolivian collection. And I'm there with that lawyer, and we're just sitting there. Now she don't pay us any attention. So Fernando asked her where she's going. She's going to Miami to buy an airplane. Well, this lawyer's smarter than I am, and he says, Roger has an airplane for sale, and he winked at me. And she asked, what kind of airplanes do you have? I said, I have a Queen Air. Queen Air, huh? She liked the idea of a Queen Air. She thought she was queen. Yes. And she says, how much do you want for it? And the lawyer's going like this. So I told her a price. She said, okay, you bring it. If I like it, I'll buy it. I said, well, now, I tell you, this is a pretty long piece from California to Panama. here. I said, I'll have a man to bring it down, but it costs $5,000 for fuel and trip. Oh, give the man $5,000, Miguel. He gave me $5,000 and brought the plane down. And so she liked it, and I flew around with her entourage, and the Shah of Iran had just died out there on that island. We went out there. And then she said, okay, you want the money to go to Santa Cruz, Bolivia, take me. So her crew got all in there, and we went to Santa Cruz, Bolivia. And you might want to cut this story out. We landed, and the police was all bowing down to her, and they put us in a police-stacked limousine, and we go out through the town, and the sirens going and the flags on the front of it. Oh, she is queen. And we come to her house under the water tower there at Santa Cruz, Bolivia, big water tower. And it looked like it's made of marble. It looked like a mausoleum or something. It has a wire fence all around it to protect it. And all the help is outside the gate, and they're wringing their hands and crying. And she said, what's the matter with you fools? What are you doing? Da, da, da. She said, your lion is eating the baby. What? And she runs in, and I walk in behind her, and she has a mountain lion. And he's eating a baby, a little baby, looked like about a year old, on the floor. It was a terrible scene. Sometimes I tell it, and it's too gross to tell, but that lion ate that baby, had blood all over its face, and she grabbed little Tommy, put him in another room, and goes out there, get away from here, you stupid people. Never want to see your ugly faces again. Leaving a baby on the floor with a lion in the house, and that was my. And then later
was that her baby? No,
it was one of the maid's babies.
Wow.
So later on, if you want to read about her, she's in the book, The Big White Lie of the CIA and the crack cocaine epidemic. She told on me. She told on a lot of people and put them in prison. So yeah, she was bad. She was a black widow of Bolivia. Damn. Sonia de Atala.
Sonia.
Yes.
So the DEA got to her?
Pardon?
DEA got to her? What happened?
Oh, they got to her and they turned her, and she just flipped. She didn't care.
Wow. Because she wasn't even a U.S. citizen, right?
No, but they all over. They'll extradite you out of there. Wow. I don't know how they got her.
Damn.
But that book, The Big White Lie, the CIA and the crack cocaine epidemic, it's a good book. And they put a whole chapter of me and her in that chapter.
So she brought down a lot of people.
I don't know, but she did what she wanted to. She's living here in the United States in witness protection.
Wow.
So
you never wanted to go that route.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's just which is respectful.
You're either a snitch or you're not.
Yeah. A lot of people you worked with, though, like some guys here.
Every one of them snitched.
Every one of them?
Every single one of them.
Wow.
I was doing some work, and I'll just tell you about this. I told my friend Jerry, when I first started, I said, Jerry, that guy's an asshole. He said, Roger, remember this. In this business, if you don't work with assholes, you're going to be lonely.
I love that.
About the truth.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but there was plenty of them. They just low life that'll tell on you in a minute.
Yeah. So you had to live pretty cautiously who you kept around you, right?
I didn't smoke the stuff. I didn't do it. I didn't fool with those people. So I had nobody around me. I come home with my family, went to church and went and bought groceries and went down the road and whatever I had to do, plowed my garden, and I lived a normal life.
Yeah.
So Apple had was going to make a series of my life, and they were going to make me sort of like Forrest Gump, going out doing all these things, getting blown up and coming home to a loving family. And anyhow, that didn't fly, so you're starting over again.
Yeah. I don't think that's the right angle for your story.
No.
I mean, you obviously were smart enough to survive it all. That's not a Forrest Gump portrayal to me.
They were saying where he's going out, getting Vietnam and getting shot and all these things, and he's coming back home with a sweetheart, or whatever. But anyhow, that's how they wrote it. The pilot, it didn't work.
Damn. So after Bolivia, you ended up in Germany at some point, right?
No, I have some different between now. This guy Fernando Correo, the one where Sonia came in, his wife, he said, go see her, Marta. She was a nice lady, too smart. And she said, he'll sober up one day. And he's got unlimited amounts of cocaine he wants to bring to the United States. He pays $5,000 a kilo. And just wait, he will sober up. He may stay drunk for 3 months, but he was a brilliant man, really and truly, just unbelievable when he was we could talk to you. So she called me and said, come down. Fernando's having a birthday party, and we're having it over on the coast. And we're flying over with Avianca Airlines is flying the crew, everybody over. So I flew over. I got there and I flew down commercially and went to, I guess, Medellin, I guess it was. And we flew over, it might have been Cali. We flew over in the little shorts, and one right after the other. And we landed at runway. It must have been 2 miles long. And that's where they loaded marijuana on the ocean. He owned miles and miles of that beach south of Panama. And so I landed there, and I looked, and there's airplanes up on the side, wasp nest under the wings. It was like, that's when if they wanted to buy a new airplane, they'd take the numbers off of that old one and just buy a new one in the States and paint it on there. And so those old airplanes, there was millions of dollars worth of junk there.
Wow.
And D8 tractors just track off, nothing. They didn't have anybody to fix anything. So I landed there, and on the way over, I met Mario and Matilda Sanchez, beautiful couple. And she was trying to sell them launches to go out to load the boats with, I believe. But she spoke perfect English, beautiful English. So I walked down. There was an old log house there, and on the fast-flowing river. And I pulled my shoes off and was walking on the beach. And a young woman, started walking with me and was chatting along, and it's all red clay in the beach. And Matilda and Mario come the other way and says, Roger, Mario tells me that you're walking with the girlfriend of the most vicious killer in Colombia. He suggests you get away from her.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, Matilda. So I excused myself from the young lady. She was telling me, I don't know. I've never rode in an airplane before. I don't know this man, and just invited me. And I said, I know why he invited you, honey. You might not. But she looked like a poor girl from the barrios. And so that night I'm in with a bunch of men in the bunkhouse. The important people got houses on stilts by the beach. Anyhow, that woman comes flying in the room, slams into me. And then that guy comes in. And Jaime Ordonez, he had killed 16 judges. He got caught with a ton of cocaine.
Whoa.
So he was bad, but anyhow, his friends got him up. So that weekend was a big, big meeting, and I believe that's when the Medellin Cartel was formed. They had judges and actors and people putting on skits and police from every city in Colombia. And they decided to make an insurance policy. If the cocaine's worth $10,000 a kilo in Colombia, and it's worth $40, $50 in New York, if you give it to us, if it gets busted between you give it to us and we giving it to your man, we will replace it in Colombia. So I understand they got 100 tons put on them. 5 guys, the Ochoas, Escobar, I don't know who all they were, but they had plenty of cocaine. So the important people left, and we was waiting for the airline to come pick us up the next day. And I got me a plate of food and went around behind the old log house and was laying in a hammock, reading the book, The MMK, The Far Pavilions. Pow, pow, right by my head. Blood spattered on me and spattered on the book.
Wow.
And I rolled out of that hammock, and I just kept rolling. And when I looked up, there was a black man, and he was tearing the pistol out of a white man's head. And his young black man looked like he was about 20 years old, and a 60-year-old Colombian. And he put that pistol right behind the other guy's his head, and click, 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 click. There were no more bullets. And I saw that the white man had shot a dog right in the head. He had a big black spot around his eye, just like in the Little Rascals. And that dog was turning, flipping blood, and he had shot the black man in the leg, in the femoral artery, and he was bleeding profusely. So he started hobbling off, and I lied. I'm not a doctor, but I said, I'm a doctor. I do have a lot of first aid training. I said, I can save you. And he put that pistol right at me, and I didn't want it to go click, click, click. So he went on down the road and died.
Wow.
So, that native people under those trees back there, they was on, they was grieving and carrying on. And they come and said, that the white people had come in here and was causing a lot of trouble and this and that and other, and it killed that boy, and there was going to be lots of trouble before daylight. Well, it got dark and the generator went out. They'd poured sand and water in the tank. And I was concerned.
Yeah, I would be too.
20 or 30 of us white people left there, and just the actresses and, unimportant people, we just guessed. So I stayed right close to Matilda. She had a little .32 pistol. And we put diesel in cans and put a little gasoline on the rags and had little tiny smudgy plots all night long. And the next morning the soldiers came, and of course, that's just a heck of a story. But anyway, that's how I met the people in the cocaine business.
Jeez.
So Mario took me to Envigado, and we went up a little road that had the toll gate, or the gate, we call it, and went by the guns, and then went up a little road and cobblestone for half a mile, wound around, beautiful bromeliads in the trees above the road, and come to an old house. And it was old. I mean, 200 or 300 years old. And men all out, 30 or 40 of them in the front yard with their fedoras, and there's hitching rails and stone. They was waiting to see El Jefe. And I was ushered right in. Really pretty woman. Come in, be careful for the hole in the floor. There was a hole that big in the floor, but it's all polished, and the floor was uneven. That thing had been, it was nice. So they ushered us right in to see Jorge Ochoa. And he's sitting behind a desk, almost this big, and he shakes hand, he speaks a little English. And he got 12 telephones on his desk, and each one of them's a different color. And what's with these telephones? He said, well, each one of these from a different city. If that one rings, it's New York, and that one rings, it's Chicago. I know which one it is.
Wow.
So anyway, we had a chat, and he asked what kind of airplanes you had. And I told him a DC-3, a Beech 18, turbojet Aero Commander, and what kind of experience you have. And I told him a couple hundred loads coming across the border. So he said they had all the work I could do at $5,000 a kilo. I said, how much you put in there? 300, 500 kilos. I thought, well, that's $2.5 million a day.
Jeez.
I think I want to work with you. So he said, let me call my compadre. So he sent the pretty woman somewhere, and she came back with a man introduced himself, Pablo Escobar. And just man my size, 5'8", whatever, and looked about benign as you could, and khaki pants and
Did
nice
you know
shirt.
who he was at the time?
No.
You never heard of him?
Never heard of him, never heard any of them. They were not any famous at that time. And so he told me the same thing. He didn't speak any English, but I spoke in Spanish, and said, we have all the work you can do, senor. So I went home and got my airplane, and I started flying. And I mean, it was jam up. So they kept making me go further and further in the jungle down towards Brazil. And I went to see them. I said, now listen, I just can't make it. It won't make it that far. And they said, well, next time I landed, Pablo Escobar landed in a new helicopter right beside me at a banana plantation down there. And he introduced me to a guy named Benjamin. And Benjamin got in the plane. He said, go where he tells you to. So we loaded up with cocaine, and Benjamin got in there, and we took off and went and landed at a military base in Nicaragua. I met the general there, and they cooked lunch and steaks and with the egg on top of it. And he said, land here anytime you want to, but in radio silence, and we'll fill you plane up with gas. You can spend the night, stay as long as you want to, and go north when you want. So, I mean, that was like unbelievable. So that was before the Oliver North and the Iran-Contra.
Yeah.
But so I got above, I think I got about 6 or 7 loads, and I got above the clouds one night and couldn't get down. I got above the fog. And so I was in dire straits, and I thought I was going to die. I said, what am I going to do? I can't get down.
It was too foggy?
It was just fog, just a layer of fog from, I guess, Chicago to Orlando or somewhere. I didn't have enough fuel to go where it wasn't. So it was late at night, and the moon was shining bright, and I just had to go out, and all the airports closed. And so I came down the glide slope at Louis Armstrong International Airport there in New Orleans and bounced down the runway. I couldn't see anything. And I'm not that good a pilot. Most people aren't.
Yeah.
So I got stopped halfway down, and I walked a mile to the end, walked a mile the other way, and I'm off in the gravel on one side between the lights. And I stayed there all night long. It was still 0-0 everywhere. So the next morning, I guess it got 7, 8 o'clock, and the sun came out. You could see right up through it, but you couldn't see 2 lights down the runway. And I couldn't stand it any longer. I thought some little security truck or something's going to come down this runway and find me. I'll be life in prison.
Yeah.
So when it just a little bit of cleared, I took off. And I didn't have to go but 30, 40 miles. A place called St. Timothy Aviation over at across Lake Pontchartrain. And the guy, Harvey, that I was paying to land, a nice fella, I talked to him on a walkie-talkie, and he said, it's still fogged in here, Roger, but it's breaking up, and I can see up. I can see you. I said, I can see you too. He said, but when you get down in, it's going to be snot. So I didn't have much fuel left. I just pulled the power and headed for that runway, and I got landed, and I said, I am through. I'm never going to do it again. It's just, my life's not worth it. So Lito was in Miami, and when I took the load to him, I told him that was it. I was quitting. And of course, they was making their living off of me. And, oh, please, Roger, please, no. And said, you have anybody fly? And I thought, well, heck, I got the thing down. So I said, I maybe have somebody. So I went and asked Barry Seal if he'd fly. Heck, yeah. So I put Barry to work, and he started flying. And they had so much. I bought him 3 or 4 of those Panther conversions. And so I asked my old friend Jerry Wills if he wanted to fly. Yeah. So I had 2 airlines running.
Wow.
They was bringing 2 loads a week up. So I was like $5 million a week.
Jeez.
And so it was unbelievable amount of money coming up. And I said, when you want me to come back? We're waiting on you, senor.
That is nuts. Did you have an end game? Did you have a number in mind that made you want to quit?
Not really, but it all comes to a screeching end before you expect it to.
Right.
I took a load of money to Grand Cayman Island. I chartered a jet. I forgot what kind it is, but it was a pretty good sized little jet. I don't know how many millions of dollars. I think I had $15 million in it, and flew down to Grand Cayman Island. And the pilot says, oh, we want to stay for a few days. And so I flew back commercially. And when I landed in Miami, I was arrested. I was charged with continuing criminal enterprise, which carries life in prison for possession of marijuana.
Hmm.
And so I gave up my property, my home, money, millions, and I got down to possession of 400 pounds of marijuana and tax evasion. I got 35 years.
Damn.
And then the old judge was nice, Judge Terry Hatter, and I think he'd have took me home with him if he could have. He said, I see you raised on the hog, on the farm, fed the hogs. I guess you want to come out to California and live high on the hog. But I don't know if you've Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I see all these nice things you've done for people. And I had 65 letters. He said, I read every one of them.
Wow.
So he said, but I'm gonna send a message to society. So he put me on 25 years special parole, 5 years probation, 5 years in prison.
Damn.
So that was the end of that era. So that was the beginning of my 33 years in prison.
Oh, that was the start of it?
Yeah.
Holy crap. So you did 5 years in prison?
I did about 2.5 then, and then was out on parole. And then I'd heard Barry had turned.
While you were in prison? Or?
Well, yeah, towards the end of it. So I don't know how I heard, but somebody was like, wasn't just right. So I was home, and Mari had rented a house, and it was nice. And I was eating breakfast, and there was Ronald Reagan news face on the news, and there was a C-126 Barry's bellied in on the military strip there in Nicaragua. And Ronald Reagan, blue eyes, said, we have absolute positive proof that the communist Sandinista government is in the cocaine running business. And there it was. So the phone rang. And Barry says, Roger, I'm coming out tonight. Meet me at such and such a little French restaurant there in town. So I met him at 9 o'clock. And I went in, and he was sitting back at the back, and the room was 20 people or more, all of them 25, 35-year-old DE agents, of course.
Wow. Women
with their leather skirts and men with a sport jacket. And Barry was leaned back, and I said, Barry, you wired? He said, no, I'm not wired. I said, well, I'm not going to say anything. Just tell me what's happening. So he went to tell me how that he had been protected by the Clintons, CIA, everybody, and they unloaded. And I was giving him $50,000 every time I landed for his protection. So he said, they all abandoned me. So I was facing 3 life sentences. So I told everybody. I told on all of them. And they said, I've told on your part of it too. I said, no, you can come to Miami and testify with me. You can get a new passport, keep your money, live anywhere in the world you want to live. I said, all of them, yeah, but he just put his fingers over his eyes. I mean, he put his hands up and the tears run between his fingers. He said, I'm so sorry, Roger. I'm so sorry. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do 3 life sentences. And I said, Barry, they're going to kill you, friend. No. And I said, well, bring your head honcho over. And the guy was Jake Jacobson, the guy that they had gone down and got 1.5 tons and put it in that C-126 and bellied it in the runway there in Nicaragua. And then they called Pablo Escobar and said, we need another airplane. And Barry had a camera inside clicking and one under the wing clicking.
Wow.
He said you could hear them clicking. And Pablo Escobar comes and you can see and you can read about this, and he's got pictures of it in the book Kings of Cocaine. It's got a chapter about me in there. And so you see Pablo Escobar and some of those generals toting the cocaine from one plane to the other. And they take it on into Florida. And then Lito, my friend, gets it, and they driving down the road in a motorhome, and they have a dump truck with a DEA agent ram into it. And Lito's arrested, and that's the end of the game. So Barry he's working for him. So I've got to go testify with Barry or spend the rest of my life in a penitentiary. That agent says, you can go down tomorrow in first class, or I'll take you down tonight in chains. If I take you in chains, the only place you're ever going to see your family again, I promise you, is in a federal penitentiary visiting room, as long as you live. I said, I believe I'll go first class tomorrow. So I went down, and I went to see a famous lawyer, one anyhow that had some, and I was telling him what the situation was, and he said, well, I'll represent you for $600,000, but I don't talk to snitches. I said, no, mister, I'm not a snitch. I said, I got to do something. I'm looking for professional help. What can I do? He said, being a snitch is like being pregnant. You either are or you're not. I said, well, I'm not. So he said, well, there ain't nothing I can do for you. He said, if you go in that room and testify before the grand jury, and you don't tell them one thing, they can use everything you said against you to convict you. Then you got to tell them everything. So I took Mari and the children. We fled to Brazil, and we was down there a few months. And Barry was assassinated.
Wow!
Shot in the parking lot. The DEA begged the judge not to put him into a place like that. He said he will be killed, and the judge said he should have thought of that before he did this. So the judge gave him a death sentence. Gave him 6 months. Had to go in every night at 6 o'clock to a halfway house. And the guy that I flew up on the first load was the guy that killed him.
No
and he
way.
just got out after 40 years. Just got out here a few months ago. He did, I don't know, 40 years maybe. We got 86, so he must have been 38 years.
Holy crap. And he just got out?
Just got out.
So he put the hit out for him?
Pardon?
He put a hit on Barry from prison?
No, he killed him.
Oh, he killed him.
No, the Ochoa brother, I believe, put the hit on, and he sent that guy up to kill him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that guy sitting on the back seat of it's kind of interesting. He sat on the back seat of the first load I did for him.
Dang.
And he had a little Mac-10, ugly man, skinny little ugly man. I mean, sure enough, ugly. And we took off, and it was a banana plantation. A lot of that stuff was down in the banana fields. And it was clay. It was raining. So we took off, the mud from the clay filled up my wheel wells of that little airplane. And I couldn't get the wheels up. Well, now they'd be going 300 miles an hour. I'm going about 200. I can't make Louisiana or Arkansas with that drag. So I tell the guy, we got to stop. And he, no, Louisiana. I could have been going to Argentina. He wouldn't have known the difference. But so I told him, no, we got to stop in Belize. And I got a place there that it's safe to stop. I used to refuel for marijuana there. No, and he put the gun right up to my head. I said, go ahead and shoot, fool. You're going to die too. Either way, you're going to die. So anyhow, I landed with that gun to my head. and Mr. Carter was there, and he welcomed me good, and I sent a boy out to wash the airplane and spiced it up, and we ate on the veranda, and that old guy Ronaldo was happy as a lark. We had chicken and potatoes, and we flew on in, and that's when Barry unloaded me that load, and that's how he met Barry, so he knew who he was looking for.
Wow.
So that was the death of Barry Seal. And
did all the cases get dismissed because he died?
Yes, but when they caught me, I had several. I'll jump ahead. When they caught me here in the United States, they made me do 11 years for parole violation. It's the longest in the world history. I've never heard of anybody. No, nothing in the United States. 132 months.
Jeez.
And back up there, I'd getting ahead of myself there. But so anyway, I stayed in maximum security prison for that 11 years, right there in Lompoc.
Wow. So you ended up in Brazil, right?
Yeah, we went on down there. I took my family and fled. So I was living in Brazil and lived on the beach in an island called Guarujá. And I like it. When I got there, I was kind of looking over my shoulder, but I didn't have good paperwork. And the helicopters and all kind of was there. Anyhow, they were looking for Miguel. They had found his body, the angel of death. They had been just 2 or 3 houses from where I'd rented. So anyway, I got a scare. So after a year, my little girl, she learned to speak Portuguese, and 10, 11 years old. She played under the lifeguard place right in front of the house, and with all the children, and she had a little moped and we had a good time there in Brazil, and went all over. So my wife, I was thinking about growing soybeans. So we got Brazilian passports. We got everything perfect. Our fingerprints in the system where we got married and inherited land. All of that was paid for. So yeah, we were Brazilians. The only thing I didn't speak Portuguese. So I says, all right, let's go see what South Africa like. Mari did not like to live in the rest of our life in Brazil, but she's from Holland. So the Boer, the Dutch settled South Africa, and the language is still there. It's a little different, but so we decided, okay, let's go to Cape Town, South Africa, and see if we can find a home. So, we got off the plane first class, my wife and Miriam and our little son, like 6 years old, and Miriam must have been 11. And when we got off the airplane, we just zippity-dooed off, thinking nothing about it. And we come up to immigration, and there's a big, big Mexican-looking guy with the gold buttons and mustache. Bon dia! Come on, God. My knees went out from under me. I am wanted all over the world. I don't speak Portuguese, and I got a Portuguese passport. It's like, really? I thought, what am I going to do? This is not going to work. And my daughter came quickly around, and she said, sir, my father is deaf. And she said in Portuguese, oh, chica, welcome, family.
Wow. That is brilliant.
So that was our sojourn, and so we lived a while in South Africa. We just loved it down there.
I heard it's beautiful.
It is. Cape Town is a hidden jewel. It costs 25% there what it does now, and it is superb.
Wow. Yeah, I want to get out there. I've never been, but I've heard great things.
Yes.
You know?
It's lovely.
So you spent a lot of time in Africa?
Yeah, I like Africa. It's got something of the pioneer spirit that I have. You know, it's just certainly, I travel all over.
Absolutely.
I have no trouble.
Yeah. Well, man, we'll do a part 2, but anything you want to close off with here? I know you got the book.
Yeah, let me, I think that I'd like to read my daughter. When I got, after Europe, I got arrested in the United States. I think I told y'all I spent 33 years in prison. And this little girl that saved my butt there in Cape Town, she wrote me a poem. Here it is, Daddy's poem. See, if you could see their picture, there they are right there. I don't think you can see it.
Yeah, we'll throw it up on the screen.
Okay, all right. Daddy's poem. She wrote this when she was 17 years old after I got arrested and was back here. I'd do 11 years parole violation. A year ago, I became a poet when I wrote your birthday prose. And here I am today, ready to give it another go. First, I would like to wish you a very happy birthday to be, and to thank you very much, for without you, I would not be me. Secondly, I want to say that your suspense has been immense. It has been true, honest, and loving, and free of all pretense. Thirdly, it goes without saying, your love has surpassed all my wrongs, and you always made me smile with one of your old country songs.
Wow. Did she write this to you while you were in prison?
Pardon?
While you were in prison, she wrote this to you?
She wrote to it. She was just a little girl, 17 years old in high school.
Mm.
Yeah. I remember on Cuervo, Daddy, with you holding me in your arms as you sang Jim Reeves songs and talked about the farm. I can see you walking through the door from one of your travels far and wide, and the thought of you coming home, Daddy, kept a twinkle in our eyes. I can smell you as I did when I used to climb into your bed, and you would talk to me again about one of the adventures that you led. I can see me and Mario asleep in one of your airplanes extraordinaire, and remember wondering to myself why there wasn't an available chair. I remember having to meet you and worrying that you wouldn't be there, but you would pop from behind some counter and give us all a happy scare. You gave us presents in Key Biscayne and hotel pleasures galore, and 3 dozen roses as we came through the airport door. When I saw your face in Amsterdam at the luggage carousel, you looked like a boy with a secret that you were just dying to tell. You taught me mathematics in the sands of faraway places. You taught me to sail, and we sometimes left without any traces. We climbed glaciers in Argentina and saw the blue of their beautiful caves and witnessed the majestic beauty of such a jagged crystalline maze. I learned how to change gears on the dirt roads of Brazil. We ate hot dogs in Paraguay, a memory we stole over till. We talked about lions, elephants, and bears on a hacienda in Uruguay, but decided it was better to Europe we did fly. Oh, the old world and all its luxury, what a good time it was. From South America to the Krasnopolsky, I think we fell in love. The European jaunt, well, it's to be considered a book all in itself, but it's a story about beauty and knowledge, suspense, and worldly wealth. We went from Holland to Sweden, and we went from France to Spain, and I promise you that I have no regrets. I would definitely do it all again. I would see the world with you anytime, sir. There's no doubt in my mind, because being by your side, Daddy, always ensures a wild good time. So our paths took a turn, and we're back in the U.S. of A., but life here isn't so bad, and I'm plumb content to stay. I'm happy to be near you, though I'm not as close as before, but because of your love and encouragement, I've been able to open new doors. I'm grateful to be in school, and I'm generally happy where I am, and I even like when you call and tell me to study for the next exam. What a life you've given me, Daddy. It's a tremendous and a magical gift. We already have so many stories to tell, there are far too many to list. But I want to thank you again this day with a very big happy birthday to you and to tell you just a few more things that I know in my heart to be true. That I love you, Daddy, with all of your wrongs and your rights, that you're the head of our family and you've kept us all bound tight, that you have an honest love in your heart for God and all mankind, and you truly do believe in yourself when you say it will all be fine. I know you'll be there to catch me if ever I waver or slip, and I know I'd want you as captain on any sinking ship. I also know a new chapter is written. It's almost time to move on. It's time to sail another sea and to witness a brand new dawn. It'd be good to see you at the helm again as you point out our destination and to laugh and dance as the boat glides through. It'd be good to see you on the go, as I know you like to be, and to know you can open any door without requiring a key. But while we revel in our days together, we will know better than to hurry, because as you've told me many times, life is an incredible journey.
Wow.
From Miriam.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, poetry's a lost art these days.
Yes.
That's beautiful. We'll link the book in the description below.
All right, good.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man. Stay tuned for part 2, guys. That was fun.
All right. Thank you very much, Sean.
Awesome.